The cheery graduation music clashed with the pit in my stomach as I watched Derek chuck down yet another glass of cheap champagne. He grinned ear to ear, slurring drunken congratulations to our grandson Mason. Something was off about his jovial demeanor. As the reception wound down, I offered to take Mason home, silently dreading the drive back to Derek's house. The place still reeked of my daughter-in-law Jenna's perfume, the sickly sweet smell of fakery. Mason passed out in the back seat before we even left the parking lot. In the rearview mirror, I caught Derek sauntering up behind a group of his sleazy poker buddies, their laughter carrying across the windswept lot. "Can you believe that ditz finally did me a favor and took off?" Derek's words knocked the air from my lungs. "Just think of all the insurance money I'll rake in." The guys roared with laughter, pounding Derek's back like he'd just been crowned king. My hands gripped the wheel as flashes of memories assaulted me. Jenna's trembling smile barely concealing her silent tears, the scribbled note tucked in her journal hidden in the attic. "If you're reading this, Derek has finally gone too far." In that moment, my suspicions solidified into a grotesque reality. The monster I'd watched my daughter fall for, blinded by young lust and his empty promises, had somehow won. Jenna was gone, or worse, all for Derek's greed. The engine revved as I tore out of the lot, Mason jolting awake next to me. "Wow, Grandma, what's the rush?" I steadied my shaking voice, speaking the half-truth I'd been rehearsing for weeks. "Nothing, honey. I just really need to get home." That night, after tucking Mason into the guest room, I pulled out the secret box I'd been stashing in the attic ventilator. Jenna's meager collection of belongings, all that remained of my daughter-in-law's shattered life. Her tattered journal landed in my lap with a thud, my fingers tracing the indentation where her last words were scratched in frantic desperation. "If you're reading this, Derek has finally gone too far. Keep this safe, and keep an eye on Mason." The implications choked me. How long had she suspected Derek's malice? What hell had she been enduring while we all blissfully looked the other way? Hot tears streamed down my cheeks. No more. I swiped them away, my jaw clenching in resolve. Derek's monstrous arrogance had handed me all the evidence I needed. It was time to strike. Over the next few weeks, I watched Derek with hawkish scrutiny. His exuberant spending and boisterous laughter raised eyebrows all over town. New Italian suits, a sports car in cherry red, reservations at the ritziest steakhouses. Living it up since the deadweight ditched him, his vile friends would snicker over bourbon and cigars. I clenched my fists until my nails dug crescents into my palms. How dare he satirize Jenna's disappearance so brazenly? My sweet, gentle daughter-in-law who showered loves on Mason and showered me with hugs even after Derek's affair. Her words from our last lunch echoed in my mind. "I think he's up to something, Mom. I've found things, but I'm afraid if I pry, he'll lash out." I shuddered, realizing her disappearance may have saved her life. But from what, exactly? I needed answers. My first stop was the bank, requesting statements for all of Derek's accounts, a ploy I spun as concerning for his sudden affluent spending. The documents told a story of deception, maxed credit, compounding gambling debts owed to some terrifying names, and a 7-figure life insurance payout scheduled just weeks after Jenna's disappearance. My blood boiled. That smirking, materialistic snake wasn't grieving. He was cashing in on his wife's vanishing act. I longed to confront him but fought off my rage, knowing I'd need an incredible smokescreen to take him down. Next, I turned my sights on Jenna's inner circle, starting with Tara, her closest work friend. He had money troubles, big ones, Tara confided over a hushed brunch, and Jenna suspected he was unfaithful again, though she never confided details with me. She wrung her hands, voice cracking. "I'm just so worried "I know," I stated firmly, "which is why we're going to find her." Tara's eyes burned with promise. "Whatever you need." With an ally and a trail of evidence, Phase 1 was complete. As satisfying as lashing out at Derek felt, I knew I'd have to be patient and judicious. The path ahead would require deft precision. One false move and Mason's safety would be jeopardized. My grandson's life hung in the balance, and I'd be damned if I allowed that snake Derek to slither his way out of this. It was time to enlist some professional assistance from a friend who'd spent his life hunting reprobates like Derek. Phase 2 required calling in the big guns. starting with hitting up my old pal Raymond. Raymond's brow furrowed as he pored over the paper trail I'd compiled on Derek. Bank statements, phone records, even a sordid photo from the strip club where he'd been caught cheating months ago. "This is one twisted character you're dealing with," he muttered, shoving the stack aside with a disgusted huff. "But it's a good start." I bristled at his nonchalance. "A start? Ray, that praved con man plotted to kill my Jenna." Raymond's eyes softened as he reached for my hand. "I know, Elle, and we'll nail that bastard's hide to the wall. But we've got to be meticulous, build an airtight case piece by damning piece." Grinding my teeth, I gave a reluctant nod. As a retired police captain, Raymond knew how to play this sadistic game. As much as I craved to barge in, fist-swinging, cooler heads had to prevail, especially for Mason's sake. That poor kid had been fed lie after lie by his father, thinking his beloved mother simply took off. The thought of him trapped in Derek's clutches made my skin crawl. Over the next several days, Raymond and I built a coordinate strike, burning the midnight oil over whiskey and case files. He leveraged his old officer contacts to unearth the sordid details: Derek's bookies, his side chicks, and most damning of all, the inflated life insurance premium he'd started paying weeks before Jenna's vanishing. "There's our motive," Raymond said, tapping the document. He quite literally took out a policy on her life before attempting to, well... A lump formed in my throat as I considered the depths of Derek's depravity. What's more, as a teacher with modest earnings, Jenna had been blindsided by the massive payout. No wonder Derek was living so large. With every clue, the picture became clearer. He'd been setting the stage to cash in, all while keeping my beloved girl-in-law clueless to his sinister plot. The dizzying realization made me queasy. Just as I steadied my breath, Raymond slid another photo across the table. Derek stumbling from a sleazy motel room, lips smeared in tawdry lipstick, his sly grin stretching ear to ear. "This was taken 3 days after Jenna went missing," Raymond said grimly. "Care to guess who our friend in the cowboy hat is?" I squinted at the petite blonde emerging behind Derek, her face partially obscured but still achingly familiar. Tara, Jenna's friend. The same young woman who had just promised to help us bring her down. The deception left me seething as my fists clenched. I should have known that snake couldn't be trusted. But then it hit me. What if this was merely another strategic deception, one that could play perfectly into our trap? A slow smile spread across my lips. "Oh, she's going to help us all right," I purred, snatching up the incriminating photo. "More than she'll ever know." Raymond cocked an eyebrow but said nothing, wise enough to let me take the reins. He simply refilled his glass as I outlined my master plan, one that would leverage every last player on the chessboard to protect Mason and bury Derek once and for all. Revenge, like justice, would be best served piping hot. The family dinner was a dry run for my grand inquisition of Derek. Raymond and I had meticulously assembled every document, every photo, an overwhelming case to dismantle his lies once and for all. Yet a bigger challenge loomed: Mason. His allegiance was still divided between his beloved late mother and his manipulative, very much alive father. I had to tread carefully, protecting him from the full, sordid truth, until Derek's defenses were shattered. Mason eyed me cautiously from across the table as I laid out the bread and salad. Derek, ever the arrogant fool, filled his wineglass to the brim, oblivious to the reckoning on the horizon. "You've seemed awfully preoccupied lately, Elaine," he said with a smirk. "Everything okay over there in Vinegar Villa?" I bristled but maintained my poise. "Everything is fine, Derek. I've just been catching up on some reading." His brow arched in mock concern. "Oh, do tell. Maybe I can recommend a nice work of fiction to lift your spirits." The venom in his voice was palpable. This smug bastard had no shame, did he? No matter, I'd wipe that Cheshire grin off his face soon enough. Suppressing a twisted smile, I retrieved the thick manila folder tucked under my seat. "Actually, I've been studying up on much more riveting literature. The kind with pictures." With a flat thump, I slapped the folder on the table, its contents spilling free: crime scene photos, bank statements, inizined motel stills. Raymond remained stoic, but Derek's complexion drained of color. "The hell is this?" he sputtered. "The truth," I said evenly. I turned to Mason. "Something your father seems allergic to." Mason's eyes darted between Derek and me. Horrified confusion splashed across his face. "Dad, what?" "Don't listen to her, son," Derek spat, sweat beading his brow. "Your grandma's had too much goddamn Pinot and—" "I've had enough," I roared, slamming my fists on the table. "Enough of your lies, your philandering, your vile disrespect for Jenna and this whole family." Wine sloshed from overturned glasses as Derek shot to his feet. "How dare you, you conniving old bat! You've gone and lost your damn mind." Raymond rose like a monolith beside me, his baritone voice cutting through the commotion. "Can it, dirtbag? The Hashers are all here, therapists, clergy, everyone who gave a damn about Jenna. We've got enough to put you away for—" I tuned out the legal jargon, focusing on Mason. Shock and horror contorted his boyish features as the weight of the truth crashed over him in waves. My heart ached to shield him from this pain, this ultimate betrayal. Tears streamed down his face as he turned to Derek. "Dad, what did you do?" Derek's face reddened. For an instant, I pitied the boy still clinging to his father's imaged nobility. Then reality struck in the form of Derek's chilling backhand. "You'll do as I say, you disrespectful little—" I moved on instinct, my elbow catching his ribs with a sickening crack before Raymond hauled him back. The beast's true colors raged to the fore, mercilessly unleashed on his only child. As Mason crumpled to the floor, I rushed to his side, pulling him close. He sobbed into my chest, so fragile, yet still clinging to hope. Hope that for once, truth would finally prevail over lies, and I would ensure it did, no matter how much carnage the gathering storm would leave in its wake. The aftermath of Derek's public meltdown was a blur. Mason refused to speak to or even look at his father, staying glued to my side like a terrified child. I didn't blame him. That ruthless slap had finally shattered the illusion of Derek's hollow paternal facade. As for Derek himself, he ricocheted between blustering threats and sniveling pleas as Raymond's cop buddies hauled him away on suspicion of domestic violence. Of course, it was merely the tip of the iceberg, but an important first step to strip away his freedom and his cockiness. "I want that smug prick to feel the walls closing in from every angle," Raymond assured me later that evening over straight whiskeys. We'd reassembled at his place to regroup, poring over the meticulously assembled case files and devising our multi-pronged attack strategy. With Derek safely tucked away, we could accelerate our efforts without him slithering free. "First order of business is protecting Mason," I said, jaw clenched. "He's not going anywhere near that snake again until the venom's been completely extracted." Raymond nodded grimly. "Agreed. We'll get emergency custody pushed through so he's fully in your care. Judges will side with us, especially after that sick display." "Good." I drained my glass, relishing the slow burn at the back of my throat. "Because the bastard crossed the final line when he struck that boy. Everything from here on out is scorched earth." For the next several hours, we assembled our chess pieces. Anonymous tips firing off to the police about Derek's illicit gambling, shady business dealings, and possible crimes against Jenna. A meticulous forensic audit to freeze every last penny of his assets, smokescreen transactions designed to panic him into revealing his hand. Finally, we formed the centerpiece, a meticulously planned sting operation to catch Derek red-handed in the midst of his next infidelity. This one to be captured on video and splashed across every social media feed in town. I grinned wolfishly as Raymond outlined the tech specs, special lenses and ultra-encrypted streaming links primed to broadcast Derek's lies and lechery to a hand-picked audience of influential friends, employers, anyone who could maximize his public flaming. He'll be so disgraced, so hamstrung by looming charges, that rolling over and confessing everything will be his only chance to try saving face. Raymond purred, clearly relishing the intricacies of our ornate takedown. I simply nodded, adrenaline thrumming through my veins as visions of Derek's unraveling danced before me. He deserved far worse than a fractured reputation or quelched finances. Budding Mason, my poor, innocent grandson, that unforgivable sin warranted the harshest karmic vengeance this life could serve, and I would be its sword of deliverance. Draining the last amber dregs from my glass, I turned to Raymond with a feral gleam. "Let's make that bastard bleed." The sting was going off without a hitch. Tara had lured Derek to the seedy downtown motel with practiced precision, her coquettish texts and promises of fun speaking directly to his baser impulses. From my discreet staging point down the hall, I could hear the telltale sounds of Derek's arrival, his arrogant bravado greeting Tara, that familiar slithery tone that made my skin crawl. "Well, hello there, gorgeous. You're looking even tastier than those pictures you sent." Tara's flirtatious girlish giggle was practically theatrical. "You always were the charmer, Mr. Sullivan. Now why don't you come on inside and let me take care of you?" I had to commend her committed performance, especially knowing that less than 48 hours earlier, I'd strong-armed her into cooperating by showing the proof of her previous trysts with Derek. The fear in those big doe eyes told me all I needed to know. As Derek's oily chuckle faded behind the closed door, Raymond emerged from the shadows, holding up a tiny microchip between his fingers. "Cameras are hot and transmitting to our secure channel. Time to go live." We slipped on our headsets and tapped into the feed just as Derek was peeling off Tara's satiny robe, his meaty paws groping her lithe frame with shameless entitlement. God, I've missed this body. The lewd image was merely prelude for the fireworks to come. I thought of Mason, still recovering from his own traumatic disillusionment, and my righteous resolve strengthened. Expose this charlatan for the abusive, self-serving creep he was. That was the only path to justice. On Raymond's mark, our crew activated a precise digital operation, one that broadcasted the live stream to very specific trusted contacts, church leaders, Derek's employers, charity figureheads, upstanding people mortified to see one of their own engaged in such debased improprieties. Pandemonium erupted as our network expanded exponentially across the small town, the shock and horror reverberating through the entire community. The calls and messages deluged my phone in a barrage of disgust and repudiation, and through it all, Derek remained oblivious to his unraveling, rutting away on that tawdry motel room bed, at least until Raymond's gruff voice broke through the speakers. "Having fun there, dirtbag." Derek froze, his bulging face snapping up in wild-eyed panic. What is this?" "A reckoning," Raymond replied coolly. "One that's coming at you from all sides, thanks to that cute little video feed you're starring in." At that moment, Derek's phone began ringing off the hook, every busybody and professional contact bearing witness to his brazen indiscretions. His frantic howls and fumbled attempts to kill the stream were utterly fruitless. The depraved spectacle was live for the world to see. Somewhere in that pathetic display of panic and shame, I was dimly aware of Tara gathering her clothes and darting from the room. Her part in our charade was over. Mine, however, was just beginning. Time for the snake's final constriction. Straightening my spine, I strode down the hallway with purpose. The door opened before I could even knock. There stood Derek, his sweaty, horrified face almost subhuman at this point. I locked eyes with the wretched creature, letting the waves of reviled anger wash over me. "Hello, Derek," I said coldly. "We need to talk." Derek's world was crumbling. I could see it in his wild, desperate eyes as he stared back at me in the dingy motel room, utterly shell-shocked. This has to be some kind of mistake," he stammered, struggling to cover his nakedness. "You can't seriously think I'd—" "Save it," I snapped, his pathetic excuses like sandpaper against my resolve. "The jig is up, Derek. We have everything, the affairs, the gambling, the insurance scam you tried to run on Jenna. It's all been exposed." He recoiled as if struck, his bravado finally deflating under the weight of his sins laid bare. Raymond emerged from the hallway, arms crossed like a sentry guarding an inmate. 2 uniformed officers flanked him, eyes scanning Derek with undisguised repulsion. "We've got enough to put you away for a long time, Sullivan," Raymond growled. "But even prison will be a cakewalk compared to the beatdown your reputation's about to take." As if on cue, Derek's phone erupted again, a cacophony of shrill rings and pinging text notifications. The shock, the scorn of his community discovering his web of depravity in such dramatic fashion. I watched as he picked it up with a shaking hand, scrolling through the onslaught of vitriol numbly. This can't be real," he whispered, complexion blanching. "I'm ruined." "Not yet you aren't," I said with chilling finality. "But you can start making amends right now by telling us the truth about Jenna." Derek's roomy gaze flicked up to bore into mine, twin vortices of panic and hatred swirling in their depths. In that moment, I caught a glimpse of the darkness that must have consumed my sweet Jenna's final days, the insidious dread she felt around this man she'd once loved. My stomach turned, but I held my steely glare. "What did you do?" For a span of harrowing seconds, Derek was utterly mute, the whirlwind of his sins rendering him catatonic. Just when I began to lose hope, his thin lips parted once more. "I just wanted out," he croaked, voice barely audible. "The debts, the money problems. I thought if I could just make her disappear, that big insurance payout would solve it all." The words hung heavy in the fetid air, a damning admission of his greed and monstrosity. Raymond tensed beside me, but I raised a hand to stay him. I needed to hear the unvarnished truth. "But Jenna, she must have suspected something," Derek continued, his voice dropping to a guttural rasp. "I started clearing out the accounts, keeping her in the dark, anything to keep the payout intact after I took care of her. But she caught wind and bailed. Took off with nothing but a damn ringful of cash from her jewelry box." My heart clenched as hatred bubbled through me like acidic bile. This whole sordid nightmare, every agonizing uncertainty Jenna must have endured in those final weeks, all because her husband craved an easier life. I wanted to unleash a scream, a torrent of sadistic punches, anything to absolve this rage. But I stayed my hand, letting the icy silence eviscerate Derek's soul. Because in this moment, I realized my revenge was complete. He was already in hell, forged of the very lies and betrayal he'd callously inflicted on everyone around him. The stain of his sins would never wash off. So as the police closed in, wrenching his arms behind his back, I simply watched in hollow triumph. No satisfaction, no feeling of release. The monster's secret was out, his freedom forfeit. But at what cost had this justice come? The question haunted me, as Derek was hauled away in disgrace. At last, the search for Jenna could begin in earnest. I only prayed that this nightmare's ending would allow for a shred of healing to take root. The call came just after midnight, Raymond's gruff voice crackling through the line with a mixture of elation and sheer disbelief. "We found her, Elaine. Jenna's alive." My legs buckled as the words washed over me, equal parts rapture and terror paralyzing my every nerve. After weeks of feverish searching, haunted by visions of her scared face from that hidden attic journal, she was out there somewhere, safe. Raymond relayed the details. An anonymous tip from a diner waitress in Santa Fe who recognized Jenna's photo from the news broadcasts. Apparently she'd been serving there under an assumed name, laying low as a refugee from her own life. Relief and rage churned through me in sickening waves. While Derek rotted in jail awaiting trial, my poor girl had spent months as a fractured ghost, severed from her loved ones by the man who vowed to honor and protect her. But she was safe. That mantra alone propelled my shaking feet into action, every maternal instinct roaring to reunite with my unsung warrior. The airport's fluorescent lights stung my weary eyes, but I blinked past their glare, scanning every haggard face passing through customs. At last a familiar figure emerged, chocolate ringlets framing her hollow cheeks, her slender frame seeming to hunch under an immense invisible weight. "Mom?" she whispered, tentative and childlike. That was all it took to release the torrent. With a strangled cry, I gathered Jenna into my arms, clinging to her fragile bird bones as the dam burst. We sank to our knees in a tangle of sobs, fear and regret and blessed relief whirling around us in a maelstrom. "You're safe," I gasped between heaving breaths. "Oh God, you're safe." For long moments, we were lost in our raw reunion, willfully blind to the churning current of life swirling around us. When at last Jenna leaned back, her eyes were glassy yet shining with a rekindled spark. "How?" she stammered, the word more rugged gasp than true question. I stroked her matted curls, grimacing at how frail and hounded she looked. No mother should ever have to see their child in such pain. "It's over," I said firmly, steadying my voice. Derek confessed everything. With help from Raymond and some other supporters, he was exposed and arrested for what he did, all the debts, affairs, everything. "It's finished." A tremulous sigh escaped her, somewhere between anguish and blissful release. "So he'll never hurt me again?" "Never," I said, pulling her close, "and I'll make damn sure that snake never gets within a mile of my family ever again." Jenna stiffened at that, pulling back with a panicked look. "Oh God, Mason! Is he?" "Hey now, it's all right." I raised a soothing hand. unwinding the knot of fear in her gut. Mason's safe and sound, sweetie. He's with me for now, tucked away from all the ugliness. As soon as you're ready, we'll be a family again. Her hand trembled as it found mine, squeezing with the first embers of a familiar strength flickering back to life in those lost hazel eyes. I don't know how I'll ever thank you for not giving up on me. I gave her a reassuring look as my own tears flowed freely. Sometimes revenge is what gets you through the night, baby girl. But for a mother's love? I pressed my forehead to hers, savoring our reunion as a brilliant new dawn broke on the horizon. That burning light will always lead me home.